Okay.
Got it.
Okay, so good morning, everybody. So I'm Nicola Henning. So I'm the founder of Women Empowering Women. We're a community of women that kind of just all come together. We've got some amazing ambassadors, one of which will be talking to you today. We come together with regards to supporting each other. As women, we just seem to have so many plates that we have to spin through life and then have to deal with hormones, ups and downs and everything else. So this is a place where we help women with their physical health, mental health, setting up business, just all things, anything to do with women, motherhood, fertility and all of those. And we put on events during the course of the year, and this is courtesy really of our amazing ambassadors that give up their time in order to do this. We're a not-for-profit organisation, which means any money that is raised from our memberships, from our ambassadors, from our events, all of that will go to good causes which support women escaping domestic abuse along with their children. So that's just a little bit whistle stop about us. But today is all about managing the menopause. So if you think you're going crazy, you're suffering with hot sweats, you just don't know what the hell to do with yourself, Jacqui is here to help you manage the menopause and hopefully get you through out the other side feeling like you're in one piece. And I think also it's just nice for things like this in order that you don't feel completely on your own, because it's still slightly a bit of we're getting better, but it's still a bit of a taboo subject. And a lot of us seem to suffer in silence. So it's an opportunity for us to get together, share what we're all going through, and Jacqui will guide us through. So this is Jacqui Sechiari. She's one of our women's health and fitness coaches. She's one of our amazing ambassadors that has given up her day today. So Jacqui, without further ado, I'm going to hand over to you.
Thank you. Lovely to be here. This is obviously the day after World Menopause Day, so it was all going off yesterday, wasn't it? I don't know if you saw Lorraine and Dr. Louise Newson and Lisa Snowdon on TV yesterday morning chatting about it all as well. But I think really what I wanted to do today was talk more about the non-medical side. I think there's been a lot of talk about HRT, which is not wrong, and I'm not anti-HRT, but I think there are some women who don't want to take it, they can't take it. It is medicine at the end of the day, and so wanted really to go over the alternatives and the whole lifestyle things that we can actually do, but not really just for menopause, but also for aging healthily, because obviously once we've gone through the perimenopause, we then live for another, well, hopefully 20-30 years. So it's about managing all of it really long term, not just those kind of rocky years. So what I wanted to talk about today really was what I call lifestyle hacks, which I'm hoping that you can kind of maybe listen to and then go, oh my gosh, and just have an aha moment, have that feeling of, I didn't put that together, I didn't make that connection. And it is really about making connections. So I've got 6 kind of things that I'm going to talk about, 3 things within each one. And if one of them helps, then that's great. And it's all about really starting where you need to start from. You know, you've all got different issues. We are all experiencing this in a different way. And if some of you are having sleep issues, then you start with sleep. If some of you are mega stressed, you should start with the stress. We all have to start wherever we can. But what I've tried to do is, because obviously there's a lot of info, is to consolidate that into 3 things for each kind of pillar that you can really start looking at today. And the things that I probably think are the top 3, really. Are you able to let me share my screen?
Yeah, bear with me. What's going on? There you go, you should be able to now.
Okay. All right, can everyone see that?
Yeah.
Great, okay. So, I mean, really, what I want you to do today is to kind of reflect and have this time of reflection on what's going on, and not just with your hormones, but other things that might be going on as well, and kind of making that connection so that at the end of the webinar, there might be one thing you can do and one thing you can change today that will make things a little bit better. So I'm just going to have a chat about me, what I do, how I got into all this malarkey. If you were at the health and fitness day that we had a couple of weeks ago, I did go into big detail about women's fitness and what I do and that kind of thing. I started as a personal trainer. I requalified about 9 years ago. I was an older mum. I was 41 when I had my second child, and 3 years after I had her, I realised things were happening for me that were a little bit different than the first child that I had. Weird things were going on with my sleep. My exercise and nutrition were the same as I'd always done, but I didn't feel the same. I didn't feel as energized. I was definitely cranky, but I blamed it all on post-baby hormones because that's what I thought it was. So 2 years after giving birth, I was like, oh, it's just, it's the baby thing. It's this, it's that. And after going to GPs and chatting in depth with my nutritional therapist friend, she mentioned the word perimenopause, which I'd never heard of. And that kind of started my journey, really. So I started researching, looking. I found a company. So I've got this third age women menopause transition certification, which was a long time ago, really. A lady was way ahead of the time and went and put together an online course for women's health coaches to be able to help women going through this transition with their nutrition and sleep and that kind of thing. And that was, probably 6 or 7 years ago, and haven't really stopped researching, to be fair. But I will say I have researched a lot into the things that I needed because that's where I started. So I started with my own health. I looked into sleep. I looked into nutrition. As a fitness trainer, obviously, I was very interested in the fitness side of things. And for me, it was the brain issues. So it was the anger, the mood, the brain fog, the not feeling like me. I used to be quite let's go do this, that kind of a party animal. And that I was like, I can't be bothered anymore. And it just wasn't me. So I did probably more research into that kind of area because that's what I needed. But I don't know everything, but I will try and help wherever I can. So that's me. This is what I'm going to cover today, really, is I'm trying to really talk about what happens to your health when we go through menopause. And it doesn't have to be all doom and gloom. And it will sound a little bit doom and gloom, but at the end of the day, our bodies are changing and we have to look at that inwardly and say, right, what's happening, understand what's happening, and then be able to tweak things that you can tweak, that you can implement in your life that will help with that transition. And it isn't just always about estrogen. As I talked about in the last webinar, it's also coinciding with aging. So a lot of things happen because we're getting older as well. And, we can't do much about that, I'm afraid, but it's a privilege to be here, isn't it? So I'm going to talk about the health side of things, and then I'll talk about what lifestyle and behavior things we can do, which I kind of follow my 6 pillars, which is the 6 menopause hacks. And then, hopefully I'll be able to respond to your question. I can't necessarily say that I can answer it. I don't know what you're going to ask. So I'll try and do what I can. Okay. So I'm just going to go through kind of what it is, what menopause is, the different kind of stages, what kind of symptoms we might go through and experience. And then we'll go into these kind of these lifestyle hacks. But I think what people don't realize is, we're not menopausal like overnight. And the transition up to menopause can last for years and years and years, depending on, obviously, each woman is different. Most women start to notice differences in their 40s, but some can be earlier. If you're having early menopause, it can be earlier. And of course, if you're going through hysterectomy or medical induced menopause for other reasons, then it is instant. But you're kind of only in menopause for one day, because you'll realize after 12 months, I'm not at a period. So that's it, you're in menopause. And after that, it's post-menopausal. So it kind of doesn't happen overnight. It does creep up. I think they talked about this yesterday, Lorraine. It creeps up on you. And after about 2 or 3 years, you might think, oh, I've put a bit of weight on, and I don't feel like this anymore. And why do I feel like that? And I'm a bit anxious. And it can be little things like not wanting to drive your car, feeling anxious about going out, meeting friends, losing confidence, all that kind of thing. But it is really a time to take stock and to kind of take reflection. And it is time to stop and go, right, I need to sort this out. I need to know what's happening. I need to give myself that knowledge so that I know what I can do and how I can get that control back. Because the minute you start to feel out of control, you just think, I can't do anything. And it just gets worse. And we can all do something. And that is the positive thing about it. But it isn't uncommon to feel overwhelmed. And I think it's just like, I think I talked about in the last one, it's like puberty. We all go through it on our own and stick ourselves in the bedroom and go, oh, no one else is going through this. But actually, as women, well, and men, but differently, we all are. And sharing, I think, just makes you realize that there is somebody out there going through a similar thing to you. And they might not all be the same kind of symptoms, but what they're experiencing from a feelings perspective and, maybe feeling alone and out of control and overwhelmed is the same. So we can make changes. And I want that to feel like a positive thing as opposed to the whole doom and gloom thing. And I love this little thing here. I've just got this in the way at the moment. I follow a guy called Dan Buettner, and he kind of, he looks at the blue zones, which is these areas in the world where people live the longest. And there's an area called Okinawa in, that's just gone off by itself. And in Okinawa it's like island off Japan where women live the longest. And, I looked at these studies. I was like, why do they live so long? What do they do? What do they eat? How do they move? What's their lifestyle? And he basically says that, it's actually 25% of your growing older and being able to stay healthy, your genetics, but the rest of it is all down to lifestyle. So we can do something about it. So yeah, I just want you to take a positive away rather than sitting and thinking about it all being doom and gloom. So here are the stages. I mean, these are very, very average numbers. We all go through different things at different times, but we have our kind of normal life where we're here to reproduce, starting from puberty up until about 35, 40. And then that's when some women's periods might change, but it might be all sorts of things. It isn't just, isn't just all about periods. And I think that's what people don't realize. They're still having regular periods, but other things are happening. And then they don't put two and two together. Maybe they think they're depressed or anxious or whatever it is, but they don't really realize that you don't have to start having irregular periods for things to go a little bit haywire. So we've got this kind of definition of menopause is when you haven't had a period for 12 months. But the kind of time leading up to that is the perimenopause, where you might have started to notice these changes. Things like mood changes, weight gain, not being able to sleep, brain fog, hot sweats. I mean, they're the kind of, the ones that lots of people hear of, but there are all sorts of things that people don't talk about, like dry skin, itchy scalp, itchy skin, feel like you've got things crawling on you, restless legs, tinnitus, all these kind of things also can be part of it. But that doesn't mean we should put everything that we have and every symptom down to the perimenopause. If if things start to get out of whack, then we should definitely go see the GP. So I think what we need to realize is that this is a natural part of life. It happens because our egg follicles start to, we have less and less and less and less eggs. So the connection between the brain and all the hormones start to decline, and the body kind of goes into a little bit of haywire. Once we've had or not had a period for 12 months, we are then said to be post-menopausal. And just to say here, I did a little post the other day. Why does it keep moving by itself? Wait a minute. I did a little post the other day on post-menopausal bleeding. And I don't think many women realise that if you've not had a bleed for 12 months and then you bleed, you really need to go and see the GP about that. It doesn't even matter if it's spotting anything, you need to really go and see the GP. So we'll just talk quickly about menopausal symptoms. There are, I've talked here about the heart, vasomotor symptoms, hot flushes, night sweats, heart palpitations can be one as well. Having high blood pressure and high cholesterol, because estrogen helps to regulate all that kind of, all those areas. Headaches, mood changes, all the things that we think about when we think about issues with the brain, depression, forgetful, brain fog, rage, those kind of things. Then we can go for the physical, the joint and muscle pains. We go through this, our bones density starts to decrease and can decrease, which means that we can have either osteopenia or osteoporosis. What we really need to think about is our reduced muscle mass, which obviously helps all of our skeleton stay strong and our body stay strong. as I mentioned earlier, like this itchiness, the thinning hair, the nails breaking, that kind of thing. And then we can have fatigue, tiredness, no energy, and a lot of that can be related to bad sleep, because having our hormones declining can also affect sleep. We can have vaginal discomfort and dryness, recurring UTIs, changes to toilet. I know that Catherine likes talking about the Bristol stool chart. So changes to our going to the loo, frequency, not being able to go, pelvic floor issues, prolapses, leakages. Then we've got things like loss of libido, not being able to have sex, can't reach orgasm. All of these things are related to our decline in our hormones. So this is not like a be all and end all. There are probably more that people have gone through, but like I've said before, it's really about looking at what's happening, and if you think that the issues are not related to getting older or menopause, then really go and visiting the GP. But you'll probably find a lot of things are related to this declining hormones. Right, let's see if it will actually move now when I want it to. Come on. Okay, so I put this on another thing that we had, Catherine and I had, about, that it is not great when we start to lose our estrogen, but what that estrogen does is make us kind of the women that we are. So all this kind of like helping other people, being the Mother Earth, are you okay? They're looking after this. That kind of starts to wane as well. And actually, I think that's quite a freeing thing. That actually now you need to start thinking about you and get rid of the bullshit in your life, the bullshit people that don't make you feel good. And that's what it is about, finding the difference between the people who actually make you feel good and give you something in life, as opposed to drain you, because we don't need that anymore. So putting you and your health first is so important. And I think that thinking about your motivation to change, why do you want to change? I think one of the best ideas really is to write that down. So whenever you think, why am I here today? Write down why you're here, so that you can look back on it and it will help you to continue with that journey that you started. And I think that's super important. I think that we need to realize that we can't change everything overnight, and we have to start small. And that's why I always say you have to start with what you are going through at the moment, and your kind of, your biggest annoyance, really. And you might find that once you've started one or two small things, it puts something into place, into perspective, which then kicks off something else. So it's really about starting small, and it is changing those little habits. And I think some of us find that quite scary. And some habits will fit in really easily, and others, it might be a little bit harder. But, we can't change everything overnight. We just have to really start small. And I think one of the biggest thing is understanding your triggers, but also understanding the connections. So like I said earlier, a lot of women don't put down a connection of feeling like fatigue or moody. They might put all that blame on the menopause, but really it might be because they're just not sleeping. And the not sleeping might be because of the menopause and the decline in the hormones, but they don't make that connection of, well, I'm going to be moody, aren't I? I haven't slept very well for 6 months, and that kind of thing. So it is about making that connection, really, and about putting you first and your health. Because if you don't feel great, you can't help others. You can't really help yourself. You can't help family. You can't help partners. You can't help friends. And if you want to go and wrap yourself up in cotton wool and not go anywhere, it isn't going to help anybody else. So you need to put you first, and you need to put your health first. So these are the kind of 6 areas that I talk about, that I suggest that people look at: sleep, stress, movement, purpose, and community. And it's starting where you are. And I think they're all as important as each other. I don't think there is one that's more important than the other. But I think being active, eating better, sleeping well, managing stress are probably now even more important than they ever were before. That's because our bodies become more sensitive to stress, more sensitive to not being able to sleep. more sensitive to foods. We start to have food sensitivities as we go through menopause. That's because the estrogen can affect our gut lining. So what we eat, drink and do on a day-to-day basis kind of has a really big effect on how we feel. And so I don't want you to think of this as like, I'm going on a diet on Monday, and I'm not saying that anyone should do that, but I don't want it to be that I am going to do this. It is about creeping these things kind of into your life and not having a big, massive world plan. It's just about starting small. So if you're having problems with sleep, start there. If you're having problems with stress, start there. But finding a community and finding a tribe of people that can be around and help you is paramount, just because then you realize that you're not going through it alone, and you've always got somebody to back you up, and you've always got that help. So these are kind of what I call my 6 pillars that I suggest that women look at, and this is what I'm going to look through when I'm going to look through 3 different areas that we can, or I would say for me the top 3 things in each area that we kind of need to look at, but there are loads. I mean, I spent an hour talking just about movement last week. So there are lots of more digs into each area, but I'm just going to kind of like talk about a few little things that we can start doing. Okay, so number 1, sleep. I'm going through this because I don't think a lot of people make a connection between sleep and all the other things that we might be feeling. And this goes through things like sleep affects things like your weight, it affects your mood, it affects what you choose to eat the next day. It affects your immune system. It affects your digestive system. So all of these things that you might be experiencing, or some of the things that you might be experiencing, might all be down to sleep. Obviously fatigue, but a lot of women as well, I've read on a lot of posts and Facebook groups and things, start to complain about not being able to run my PB anymore, or I can't lift weights as I used to, or I can't do this as I used to. And everybody just goes, oh, it's just perimenopause. And then I say, well, how are you sleeping? And they go, oh, crap, not had a great night's sleep for 2 weeks. And you go, well, how are you supposed to run a PB or, lift some heavy weights when you haven't been sleeping properly? Because one of the massive things about exercise is that you also need to recover from it. And as we get older, we need more recovery from the exercise we do, especially the more intense it is. So I think this is one of those areas that women don't make that connection to having rubbish sleep and mood and weight and gut issues and those kind of things. So, I mean, I could talk about sleep for a week, but obviously I don't have a week. But I would say that these 3 things are probably the most important. Our bodies are on a circadian rhythm. But they're not all the same. My circadian rhythm might not be the same as yours, but to be able to get your body used to that, it likes a routine, just like, if you've ever had a baby and they get up at a certain time every day and you used to put them down and you'd be looking at a client, what time am I going to feed them? And then they need to sleep and then they need, we are actually still like that as adults, and we do like to go to bed at a certain time and get up at a certain time, but it's also how you wake up and how you go to sleep. So going to sleep at night on your phone, I haven't got mine here, but you're looking at all the blue light and everything else, and your brain doesn't know the difference between that and the sun. It just sees this light and goes, oh, I'm supposed to be awake now. Same in the morning, you wake up, your phone's next to your bed, it's blue light, blue light, blue light. What we should be doing is opening the windows, opening the curtains. Even if you can, get outside for 5 minutes, allow the sun into the eyes. And at night time, shut the lights down. Don't stick your head in front of your phone and start looking, because there are hormones that come out at night and in the morning that you need to help. So melatonin is the hormone that starts to help you to kind of feel a little bit sleepy. And if you're stressed and cortisol's around, melatonin won't come out. So trying to get your body to rest in the evening, and that includes things like going to some silly HIIT exercise class at 9 p.m. at night. If you think you're going to come home and sleep well, you're not, because about 9 o'clock is when your melatonin wants to come out. So the melatonin is like going, oh yeah, and you're at a gym going, pushing some weights around or whatever. It's not good at our age. Probably a bit more like yoga or something that's going to actually calm you down. So having that routine will get your body back onto that circadian rhythm. And it isn't just sleep that's in the circadian rhythm. It's blood pressure, it's eating times, It's so much more. But that is, I would say, number one, super important to be able to get to sleep and sleep well. So I kind of have talked about the no blue lights first thing in the morning and at bedtime, but I think this is still one thing that a lot of people do. They go to bed on their phones, or, you know, if you're a workaholic, you've got your laptop. And if you want to sleep well, I think that's one thing that's really kind of got to stop. So we need to help the melatonin, get the cortisol to be low so that the melatonin can come out. And then in the morning, that's when the cortisol comes out. It goes, come on, wakey, rise and shine, up you get. That's exactly where it's what's meant to happen. So it's just allowing those natural rhythms that are supposed to happen naturally, but as adults and as humans who sit awake at night on our phones, we've stopped it. So to me, that's really super important. And I think also having a think about, I mean, I'm not really good at this, but kind of having a set time to go to bed and a set wake up time. I don't always do this. So, you know, I normally get up about 7:30 in the week, but weekends I might have a lie-in for an hour, but I'm not going to not have that if my body needs it. But, you know, I don't lie in till midday like I used to. So I think this is one thing that is so important, and people don't really get that connection. If you're, so it's just gone off on its own long. If you're having hot sweats and things like that, I wouldn't go having a hot bath at night. I would run cold water over your wrists, palms, feet before you get into bed to try and help with the sleep, rather than having like your hot bathing. But, you know, Epsom salt baths and that kind of thing really help as well, just calming down. So stress, I think finding out where your stresses are is a first start. And as we know, stresses aren't always, you know, I'm stressed at work or I'm stressed about this. It can be physical stresses. If you're putting yourself on a calorie restriction, that's a stress on the body. If you're doing too much exercise, that's a stress on the body. So I think trying to not allow us to get into this chronic and persistent stress situation, which it will cause both mental and physical health conditions. So I think it's really important that we realize that we become so much more sensitive to stress, and we have to do more to kind of help with all those things. So, you know, what are you doing with your life? Are you going on diets? Are you going mental in the gym, or, you know, with your exercise? What are your thoughts? What are you thinking about? Learning to kind of unload. And that's one thing that's really helpful before bed, is having a little journal next to your bed. Write some things down before you go to sleep about what you've done that day that have been productive, rather than be on your phone. Let it unload, go to sleep. Nature, I can't talk enough about nature. So green over screen anytime, just getting out where you can. You know, I know people have heard of all this forest bathing and getting into cold water and wild water swimming, and obviously we live in London and we can't always do that, but getting to the local park, anywhere where there's trees, just listening to birds, you know, being aware of what's around us and noticing it, as opposed to just plugging in, and being in that area when you're there makes such a massive difference. And there's so much research on this about, you know, how much it can help. So yeah, many studies that can confirm the benefits of being out in green. And obviously we've got the breathing and meditation, which I'm still struggling with. I'm all right with the breathing. I'm still struggling with the meditation. It's probably the third time now that I've tried to make it a habit, and I get 10 days in, I'm like, yeah, and then I stop. And I don't know why. And I need to start doing it again, because I actually realized after about 10 days, actually, this is really good. And I was starting to use what I was learning into my everyday life. I was like, oh, a thought has just popped up, or a feeling has just popped up, and it's being aware of that. And it's only 10 minutes. In fact, I started with 3 minutes. So I'm probably the worst person to talk about it, but it really does help. And I think that, and it doesn't really matter how long it is, as long as you're allowing your brain and your body time to, because, you know, like we physically rest, our brain needs to rest as well. And I know that women are the worst for it, you know, the whole overthinking, what am I going to have for dinner, got in sharps and it's just so constant, isn't it? So I just think having that time of sitting and not doing very much is super important. Okay, what's next? Move. So obviously I'm a personal trainer. This is my thing, but I'm not going to really go into it in so much detail. I did do a whole hour on this in the last one. So if you're a member, you can go and get that and watch that as well. But I think it's just about, at the moment, rather than me saying about what we should do and not do, it's just about moving, keeping moving. There's so much research out there about how bad it is that we sit all day and then go out to the gym for an hour and get on a treadmill or whatever it is. We need to move every hour. So after 50 minutes of sitting at a now let's all get up, which we should. We should just move. And it's whether you go up the stairs, go make some tea, go and get a glass of water, go walk outside in your garden. It doesn't matter what it is. We should move more. So I think that I don't really like wearing monitors to tell me if I'm moving enough. I think you should just know if you're moving enough. But if you want a monitor, use your phone or get a watch and work out what steps you're doing and try and find a way of doing more each day until, you're happy with what you're doing. But it is just about initially more movement. And it doesn't matter whether it's, walking, crawling, cycling, whatever it is, just getting out and moving a bit more and getting off that chair, basically. And I think the main thing is finding something that you love, because if you don't, you won't do it. I've spent years, I've tried everything, and I've been a member of about 6 different gyms. I've been a member of every gym probably that they have in Wimbledon. I've always left them all. Now I can't stand them because they're always, they're for 25, 30-year-olds going, let's work off your roast dinner. And I can't do that. But I've been a member of all of them. And one thing that I've missed is group exercise, like exercising with women. I used to be part of a netball team, and I've now do everything on my own. So I'm like, should I just go down? I've got a little studio at the back of the garden. Should we go down to the studio and do some exercise? Yeah. And it's just me and it's boring. So I joined a rugby club, and I now have started playing full-on contact rugby, but I don't play the matches. So, because I don't want to get injured. So I do the training, and I go, after to the pub and have a little drink or whatever. And I absolutely love it, because it's something that I used to do as a netball player. That was me. And I love it. And I don't feel like it's exercise, because it's fantastic. So finding something you love. What did you used to love as a kid? Like roller skating, skipping? What did you do? Just find that. And if you do love skipping, keep your skipping rope in your kitchen, or, somewhere where you'll see it all the time. Makes it a little bit easier for you just to pick it up. So finding something you love is paramount, but also kind of using strength exercises over cardio, I would say, number one, because we need to increase that muscle mass. We need to increase our bone density, and we cannot do that just by getting out of breath. We need to put some kind of a stress on our muscles and on our bones. And it's fine walking, but it doesn't do much for your upper body. So we really need to find something that will, I'd rather that you crawled on your hands and knees, because that's going to be better for a bit than just walk all the time. And then I think this term exer-snacks, which I know that we did in lockdown, because we were all sat down, doing homework with the kids. Well, homework, but schoolwork with the kids. We used to have a little thing on our phones, and it would go off every 45 minutes. And for 5 minutes, all the kids, well, I've only got 2, but the kids and the husband would all come into the kitchen, and I would have arranged a 5-minute exercise routine that we do. 5 different exercises for 1 minute each. So it was like, right. And it's silly things like wheelbarrow race, or get the skipping rope, and we'd do that, or whatever it was, something that the kids would find fun. And we would just go for 5 minutes in the kitchen, have a drink of water, go back, sit down, and every hour we'd do that. And it was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. So I think finding something like this, where you go, right, I'm going to run up and down the stairs when my phone goes off. When I get to the bottom, I'm going to go on the next 2 steps and do a few press ups. Then I'm going to go back, sit down. That is just amazing. And it's enough to start with. And I think a lot of people overcomplicate it when they think about movement and go, should I be doing that? I should be doing that. But what I would say is having a real good range of things that you do is really helpful for the body. So, not always things where you're jumping around, but things where you're calming, things like yoga and Pilates, which Pilates are focusing more on, using your muscles, how they should be used, and the breathing and that kind of thing. Tai Chi, dancing, cycling, walking, all those things are, amazing. So let's move on to food. I think I'm not going to talk loads because Catherine obviously is the expert on this, but if I could say 3 things about looking at what you put in your mouth and nutrition, I would say stabilizing your blood sugar is absolutely paramount. And that's because as we get older, our estrogen kind of protects our insulin sensitivity. And as that goes down, we start to get more insulin resistant, which is not good. And obviously that has all sorts of issues with diabetes, with metabolic syndrome, which is really paramount with menopausal women. And it's not science. It's not difficult to stabilize your blood sugar. It is all about eating the 3 different food groups together at the same time. So eating some protein, some complex carbs, and some fats all at the same time. And that's why things like nuts and fruit are a great combination, because you've got all of that together, an apple and 4 almonds, or Brazil nuts, or whatever it is, whatever nuts you like, I don't really care. But it's just learning about how do I do that? How do I stabilize my blood sugars? So obviously the processed foods and the cakes and all that kind of thing are not great for us if they start to shoot up our insulin. I think that also bringing on more protein to help preserve muscle mass is something that we need. I've written here 1.2 grams per kilo per day. So obviously per kilo of your weight. It can be anything from 1 to 1.2. It depends on how much exercise that you do. And fiber is super important. And all of this will actually should make you feel fuller if you start to increase that. And I think it's something that we've never really thought about before. But having protein with every meal, like when you have your breakfast, where's the protein? When you're having your lunch, where's the protein? And if you don't know what the proteins are, just look them up. What is protein? And start from there. But also pick the things out that you like to eat. So if you're a vegetarian, obviously, you're not going to eat fish and meat and that kind of thing. You're going to get your protein from somewhere else, but you'll know about that. So it is not hard. And I want to kind of get away from the weight loss thing, because I know that a lot of women do put weight on. But I think if you do these 3 things, it'll kind of come off by itself. For me, the weight loss is about stopping before you're full, and having a plate. Use a smaller plate, and on that plate, kind of divide it, have half of it with veg / fruit, a quarter with your complex carbs, a quarter with your protein, and then a little bit of healthy fats somewhere, whether that's olive oil or nuts or seeds or avocado or whatever it is, having all that on your plate. And get to the point where you go, I'm full now. I don't actually want any more. I was a stickler for this. I hate leaving food. Even now, I hate leaving food. But I have to go, I don't want any more. And I have to physically push my plate away. I know someone else in my house will eat it, but I just have to do that, because I would sit and eat all of it. Because I was a northerner, I was brought up, you don't leave food. There's starving children in the world, all that kind of stuff that you get told. So that was my problem. So I started to use smaller plates, and I now say, I'm full, don't want any more, and pushing it away. So those kind of things really just for weight loss. But I think these 3 things, from a perspective of food, there's no point putting good food in your body if you don't have a healthy gut, because you won't be able to absorb it properly. And of course, the healthy gut means healthy brain. I don't know if many of you have heard that they now talk about the gut being a second brain. So it does affect your mood. It does affect your immune system. And all of that is super important when we're going through the perimenopause and the menopause, because as we know, our moods are fucking awful. So we really need to think about our gut health. And I'm not saying go out and go and buy loads of kefir and kombucha and whatever else, but we need to think about that kind of thing as, do I have good bacteria? Am I feeding that bacteria what I need to? Have I got good fiber? Do I have resistant starches in my diet? So it's not hard, but it is important. And if you're not sure about these kind of things, if this is a bit too technical for you, there are so many books out there that you can get to help with, what different proteins are. You just don't even need a book. You can just go online and what you can do for healthy gut health. I'm sure that Catherine will be talking about it anyway, because it is linked to the brain. So for me, these are 3 things that I would focus on when we're looking at nutrition and food. And then we talk about our purpose. So living life on purpose. So not just getting up every day and going, right, what am I going to do today? It's about having not, I don't want to say a purpose again, but in Okinawa and in all these kind of places, the Dan Buchanan interviewed these people and they said, why do you get up in the morning? He says, well, I need to go out on my boat and get some fish. Oh, okay. They all had, their own reasons as to why they had to get up in the morning, because they had a role, they had something to do, and they had other people probably relying on them for that kind of food as well. And I think sometimes we lose our purpose, especially when we get into midlife. Midlife women kind of lose that purpose. So I think living life on purpose. So if you're going to cook a meal, do it on purpose and try not to think about other things while you're doing that. Just concentrate on what you're doing, because it's really easy to get distracted from your thoughts and not be in the moment and not be present. And I think putting you first, as I said at the beginning, is absolutely super important, because no one else will. No one else will go, can I help you with your health? Have to do it yourself. You have to say to yourself, this is my priority now, and have that reason as to why you're doing it, have that purpose as to why you're doing it. For me, my purpose is, I'm an older mom. I've got a young child who's now 8, and I don't want her to see me as an older mom. I don't want her to like go, oh my God, my mom's really old. I don't want her to really notice a difference. When she's older, she will, because I'll look older. But from an attitude perspective and what we do, me, should we go for a bike ride? Should we do this? Shall we go out? I don't want her to see me as that old mom. I want to be a role model. So my purpose is for them, really, for, my other child's 14. And because I knew I was going to be an older mom, this is my reason for doing what I do right now and for putting my own health first. Because if I don't, I might not be here for their weddings. I might not be here to see their kids, my grandkids. I don't know. So having, your own purpose and your own reason, I think is super important. And there's this live framework. I don't know if you ever follow Dr. Chatterjee. Brilliant. He has this framework that he uses called love, intention, vision, and engagement. And it's such a great framework to live by, doing things that you love, doing these things with intention. And what is your vision? Like mine is that vision of longevity and being able to be there for my kids. I've just been to a wedding with them this weekend. They've never been to a wedding before. And I want to be at their wedding. I want to be able to help them. I want to be able to babysit their kids and help bring their kids up. So I think that everyone thinks it's kind of wishy-washy, but actually it's really important that you have your reason for doing things, and that reason for getting up every day and doing what you're doing, why you're doing it. Because if we kind of lose that, we kind of like go, and I think at this stage in life, that's something that's really important that we need to do. And last of all, for me, this has always been a kind of no-brainer. I've always felt like I wanted to be kind of part of something. And everybody likes different people. Everybody has a different pull towards, certain people. I like people who don't take themselves too seriously, who can have a laugh, who take the piss out of me. Don't mind that at all. Some people absolutely hate that. And finding that community when you're older is sometimes a little bit difficult, but you don't need loads of people. You only need like 2 or 3. And finding that thing that you've got in common, whether it's, a book club or going to the theatre. We started something recently, just before lockdown, actually. It was really annoying. And I used to love Culture Club. And we called it Culture Club because I said, I don't do anything cultural. So we decided to go and do something cultural, probably like once a month. And here around where we live, there's quite a lot of artists, and they open their homes once a year to their art. It was brilliant. Like meeting all these local people. They offer watercolor lessons, or they make their own pottery, or they but it was great, and they told you all the history of the, you know, the area, and it's massive. I didn't even know that there was so much history. Lord Nelson apparently lived here. This is why so much history, and I had no clue. But it was brilliant, and I need to start that up again because we haven't done anything culture club. There's only 3 of us in this culture club, but it just makes me feel good when I know that I'm kind of doing something that's a bit more exciting, a bit more interesting that I haven't really done before. Yeah, I mean, I've probably found the things that I enjoy and things I don't. Hate museums and that kind of thing, but I love things that take me into a community, and so, you know, that's what we were doing. So yeah, finding your tribe is massively important, and getting active in your community. Doesn't matter what you do. That's what I kind of loved about lockdown. We had a great community on our street, going shopping for people, cooking for people. I'm on a WhatsApp group where if somebody's sick, we have a meal train and we cook for them and go and take food there. It doesn't have to be, you know, anything. It's just, it is making a small difference. But to some people, it's a big thing, and it makes a big difference to them. We've got a rugby club down the road, and they were all collecting for Dons for the local food bank for people who couldn't get out, didn't have enough money. It was absolutely amazing. So those kind of things for me, I think, and for the midlife woman, are super important. And I've just written here, like, start a local book club or walking club. It doesn't have to be, it can be anything. But I kind of had a menopause walking club as well before lockdown. We used to meet on the common by the calf called the Windmill, and we just go off walking. And again, that had to stop. It was only probably, I think I did 4 of them just before lockdown. I need to get back into it actually. But it was great because you're kind of killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Well, 3 really. You're walking and moving, you're getting out into nature, and you're finding this tribe and having this community of women to talk about, you know, all of their, whatever they want to talk about, just somebody to listen. So it was brilliant. You know, we might have only had 6 or 7 people, but it really doesn't matter. And I think having that, and having one person that comes to you and says, thanks so much for starting that, it really helped me do this. I went to my GP and I've got help with this, or I've really, you know, that makes such a massive difference to me. Not making loads of money, it's just helping women. So I know it might sound really kind of fluffy, but I think for me, this is super important, is just having that you know, community of women around, which is one of the reasons I kind of joined women in the first place. I think I've finished because I've lost all the spit in my mouth because I've been talking for so long. So yeah, that's me. If you want to follow me on, I don't do loads of social media. I am on Instagram and I have a Facebook page, and obviously I've got a website. But yeah, you can follow me on there, and I, you know, sort of give tips and that kind of thing as well during the weeks. But also, if you wanted to hear about the kind of medical side of things and the HRT, I did a webinar like this with Catherine and another lady called Dr. Olivia Hum, who is she's a menopause specialist GP. She's actually part of the British Menopause Society. And I recorded it, and it's on, I think it's on the Woo website, which takes you onto the, like a YouTube that you can watch. So if you're also interested in the medical side, please go and watch that. It's about 28 minutes long, but it just gives you another kind of medical perspective if you wanted that as well. Right, I'm done.
Brilliant, thank you. Has anybody got any questions?
No, but I would like to say that was great. Thank you so much, Jacqui. It's lovely to hear somebody encompassing all things on this topic rather than, it was very empowering. Thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Oh, go on. Oh, go on.
Thank you very much. That was very informative. I wanted to know, you said the medical side of things.
Yep.
Because what I do like to try to understand the science of things, of how the body works in a simple form. Science for children is what I'm into, that level. But my understanding is that they don't actually know what causes like the hot flushes. That's why in many cases, like I went to my doctor for HRT. She said, no, I think you should think about doing more natural stuff. Try the herbs, the black cohosh, the red clover, blah, 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 blah. None of those worked for me. but I found it interesting that she wasn't really pushing me to do HRT. I thought that was interesting. So I thought, okay, I'll take this as a hint. And so I tried to look up, okay, what causes, because for me, my sleep is completely shot, and I blame the flushes.
Yeah.
Because the flushes wake me up, and then my brain starts to work, and then I need to pee, and then you're awake, basically. And sometimes it's so bad, my system, by 4 o'clock, my system just shuts down. And don't ask me what my name is. I wouldn't be able to tell you because I'm so tired. So I started looking up what causes the flushes. Let's get to the root, to me, of the problem, the flushes. But it doesn't seem that there's no obvious medical thing that I could find that I could say, okay, then I'll tackle it this way. You see what I mean? I mean, do you know of any? I've tried all the herbs, they don't work for me. Then I've tried, somebody told me to eat only fruit, lots and lots of different fruits, so that you can get all the different vitamins and this and that. But that means it would help to balance out your hormones. I lost weight, but the flushes didn't stop.
Of course you did.
And then I tried, somebody told me to eat according to my blood type. I don't know if you've heard of this thing.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
I have to tell you, they did decrease quite a lot. And I kept looking at the list of do not eats, thinking, okay, so one of these or two of these things are triggering it.
Yes.
Unfortunately, circumstances, and I had to go back to my normal eating, and the flushes came right back. So that's the closest I've come to actually somebody suggesting something and it actually did something. There was a difference. That's the closest I've come.
I mean, Catherine can probably help here as well. But most of them you do need to find triggers, and the triggers can be sometimes what you eat. They can also be stress, but the reason that they happen is the hypothalamus, right, Catherine?
Yeah, I'm just dying to like jump in now.
Go on then.
Well,
should we wait for your? Should we wait for you, Catherine? And Dee, if your answer's not been questioned by the end, we can come back to it, shall we? Is that all right? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to come up with it. It made me laugh earlier, Jacqui. You'd put on your screen a green over screen. I started to Google it thinking, oh, that must be like a screen thing that you can put on your phone. And then I realised it was going outside and putting the phone away. So that just made me chuckle. But the one thing I struggled with regards to sleep, I wake up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning and that is it. I end up coming down to my office and I get on with my work now. But what I have done is I've adjusted. I actually go to bed at 9 o'clock. And I still sleep till 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. In actual fact, the last couple of weeks, I'm so proud of myself because the food changes, I've started doing a bit more yoga, just trying to be a bit more mindful. I've eliminated caffeine and I've eliminated alcohol. I'm actually sleeping a lot better and I've had less brain fog. So that in itself, all that you've recommended previously, I have listened and I bought your book, everybody. Jacqui's also got a book that you might want, which you'll find the link to on our website, does actually help alleviate some of those symptoms that you're talking about, Dee. And for me, I think especially the caffeine and the alcohol and kind of just taking care of my diet, more protein, less crap, has really, really helped. So I just wanted to share that. And then also just about the portions. My husband is a feeder. And so what I've started to do is I've said, whatever you would normally put on my plate, halve it, and then I'll have the rest and I'll take that for my lunch the following day. So then it's not wasteful. My lunch is then ready, and that's really, really helped me to bring my portions down because as I'm getting older,
what it's about, those little habit changes. Yeah. Brilliant.
So, but honestly, that's been so informative. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
So, Jacqui, if you wouldn't mind, would you do the introduction for Catherine, because you obviously know far more about what she's about to do and what you can offer. So I'll hand you over.
So Catherine is, I always get it wrong, but a nutritionist, and she's also studied nutritional therapy. So it's all about how you use, food as medicine and plus a few supplements if that's what you need. Catherine and I met when I basically was, well, having my perimenopausal issues. And we did a few tests, didn't we, on my cortisol, and what else did we do? Can't remember now. And then Catherine went a little bit more into helping kids and feeding kids, because that was kind of her interest. But I could see she was getting dragged a little bit more and more and more into women and hormones, because they're the clients that were coming with her. So we just kind of joined together, and I went and did a little talk on exercise as part of her kind of nutrition course that she was doing. And we're probably doing a little bit more together, and she left me and went to Sweden.
How dare you?
I'm only kidding. I'm kidding. And probably since that, though, we've done quite a bit more together online, mainly because I was getting really annoyed with a lot of women talking about supplements with each other and recommending absolute crap. And then people would go and buy them, and they were like, spending £2.99 on 30 tablets from Tesco that were full of talcum powder and stuff like that. So I was doing a course with a group of women, 6 women were doing a course with me, and I asked Catherine to come and join me to basically just explain to them what does and doesn't work, what supplements we actually need and don't need, and where to get them from, rather than just, because it is an absolute minefield out there. And people bring all these things out. Like, did you see the latest, the Meno gin? A gin for menopausal women? I mean, honestly, I cannot tell you, it just gets worse and worse.
I hate stuff like that. It's just like, really?
I know.
Alcohol is not the way forward, people.
Isn't it?
I'm just jumping on the bandwagon, aren't I?
Oh,
yeah, absolutely.
So
It's always
all these kind of menopause tablets. It's like, well, yes, some things are down to nutrition deficiencies, but then you sort those out first before you start shoving, loads of things in your mouth. So Catherine very kindly kind of joined my group of women, and well, we've just been in touch since. And then her husband decided to train to be a Wim Hof. That was the best thing ever. Wim Hof, the Wim Hof is the Iceman who teaches about how to breathe properly to get into water. He did a few breathing sessions with the women as well, but he actually came here just before lockdown and brought some ice and his kids, and we went into the paddling pool in the back of the garden, and he taught us how to breathe, and I hate cold, how to get into this pool. It was the best thing I've ever done, and the weirdest breathing experience I've ever had in my life. And now they run retreats together, so I'm planning on taking some menopausal women up there.
Yeah, definitely. And cold showers every day. I mean, it activates the vagus nerve, so it's really
yeah, brilliant.
Fantastic.
So,
okay then,
Catherine.
Catherine, welcome. Thank you so much. Over to you.
Thanks for having me. So I did a few slides as well, but I'm conscious that I've probably got way more content than we can go through. Can I share my screen? Is that?
You should be able to now. I have co-hosted you.
Let's see. Here we go. We're gonna do it. There we go. So so thanks for having me. It's lovely to meet you all. Jacqui asked me to kind of add on to what she was saying, because she's very keen to support the brain, and very, very interested in this link between menopause, perimenopause, or changing hormones and how that affects particularly the female brain. So I've prepared a few things to run through with you, and I think it will link in quite nicely with what Dee was saying. So that's why I kind of said maybe we part that question. Thanks for the introduction. Yes, so I'm Catherine Pohl. I am a BANT registered nutritionist, and I also am a registered nutritional therapist. No great difference between the two. In my capacity today, I'm just speaking to you as a nutritionist because I'm giving sort of general advice and information. But in my kind of online clinic, so I was close to Jacqui. For those of you that were here right at the start, I have moved to what was my holiday house out in the north of Sweden and ended up staying out here. But I'm still working completely online, and that's one of the upsides, I guess, to COVID as well, that's been quite seamless. But I work one-to-one with people, and it's all about nutrition for the individual, so I can give individualized advice on nutrition and also lifestyle, so some of the other factors that Jacqui was talking about as well. and make it right for that individual, because we are all different. You know, we will all experience things differently. We'll all be experiencing perimenopause, menopause differently, different symptoms. You know, we're genetically different. But like Jacqui said, it's environmental factors as well. But we all have different lifestyles. We have different budgets. We have different family setups, different religious and cultural considerations for our life. So it's about integrating all of those things together and work with the individual. And yes, I did. I retrained, so I qualified almost 5 years ago. I did retrain and then launch my business into really the family and children's health space. But like Jacqui said, she's kind of started off bringing me dragging and screaming into this, but actually it's really relevant because we are having our children older. I mean, I was 31 when I had my first child, conscious that even then in my NCT group, I was, you know, one of the younger moms, and it's perfectly normal to be having our children now in our late 30s, early 40s. But things all then get quite complicated around these hormonal changes at the same time, and trying to figure out what's right for you can be, you know, can be a process. So I help guide women through that. So I just wanted to talk about menopause and the brain. What are the symptoms? A little bit, if I can, as far as we know with the science about what's going on, and then focus in a little bit more on the nutrition and possibly some supplement sides as to what will help. So it is 12:30 your time now. I'm conscious of time, so just let me know if I need to hurry up, Nicola. Otherwise, I'll start and see how I get on. So the first thing I wanted to show was this picture, okay, and this is from the research done by Dr. Lisa Mosconi, and she's done a lot of research into the brain and the female brain. So there's an excellent book which she's written called The XX Brain, and it's really interesting, and that kind of goes through all of her research there. But I wanted to show this picture to start with because it shows you a PET scan of a premenopausal woman and a postmenopausal woman. So premenopausal on the left, postmenopausal on the right. And I think so many people get fobbed off, you know, with brain symptoms particularly. I think it's all in their heads, but this kind of shows us that it really is in our head. So the color scale shows the amount of activity in the brain. So those brighter colors, the reds and the yellows are the active colors. When you get down into the darker green and blue, this is less activity. Okay, so we can see that the premenopausal woman has got a lot more activity going on in her brain than the postmenopausal woman. And this isn't to say that we can't support that it's just fate. That's it. That's how it is. There's loads of things that we can do to help support our brains. All those things Jacqui was talking about, I'm going to add to them as well. But I think it's sometimes nice to just see that and to appreciate that, yeah, something actually physiologically has changed and is changing in our brains. It's not our fault, all of it. And it helps to see that. We sort of associate menopause with the ovaries. So this is what Dr. Lisa Mosconi says. We associate menopause with the ovaries, but when women say that they're having hot flashes, night sweats, insomnia, memory lapses, depression, anxiety, these symptoms all start in the brain. So thinking about what you were asking, Dee, we don't have a necessarily perfectly defined cause for hot flashes, but we do know that it's the hypothalamus in the brain that controls the temperature regulation in our body. And we do know that estrogen, apart from being one of these hormones which is really important with reproduction, is used all over the body and has a really, really big role in the brain and the amount of activity that our brain is having. So if we see this reduction in activity in the brain because of a reduction in estrogen, it stands to reason that then this has an impact throughout the body. There's less activity. We're less able to regulate our temperature, as an example, with the hot flashes. So what are the brain symptoms of the menopause or perimenopause? Brain fog and memory lapses. So this one maybe seems quite self-explanatory after you've seen that picture. We're thinking about the fact that estrogen stimulates the cells of the brain. If you think about it, kind of makes sense as well. If you think about postnatally, you've just had a baby, your brain wants you to focus on the baby and keeping the baby alive. It doesn't want you writing a PhD or founding your next, FTSE 100 company, just the baby. So, we have this drop in estrogen going on. There's no other brain functions required. So in some ways, this is just a natural process that kind of makes sense. But we can find then, as the estrogen particularly drops, that we get this brain fog and memory lapses. Like I said, the hot flashes, and so it's the brain that's controlling our temperature regulation. Again, if you've ever used a hormone tracking sort of app for tracking cycles, or perhaps for fertility, a lot of those include tracking your core body temperature. And that does, fluctuate over the course of a cycle. So if you then throw in some more significant changes in all of these different hormones, sex hormones, not just estrogen, we're talking about progesterone and testosterone and pregnenolone, and all of these hormones playing a role, it stands to reason that it will have an impact on our temperature regulation as well. And I think, interestingly, stress plays a big role here. Sex hormones decrease when the level of stress hormones like cortisol increase. So one of the things that we can think about doing really to support these symptoms and to support our brain through this change is really to focus on stress. As Jacqui said, it's not just about the mental stress as well, it's about other stresses that we put on our body. And I always think of, explain this like a stress bucket. If you think about a bucket, our body gets stressed from so many different areas. We're filling up this bucket with all of our different stress. At some point, it can get full and overflow. But if we can punch some holes in the side and let the stress trickle out, that's our kind of stress management techniques, things like the meditation that Jacqui was talking about and nature. Also, if we can put less in and think about what these stresses are we're putting in, we reduce our overall stress, and that gives our body the ability to put more energy into producing the sex hormones like estrogen that we want to be having. The next symptom I've listed on here is disturbed sleep. So again, as you said, this can be linked to the hot flashes themselves or the stress and anxiety themselves. We also want to think about another of these hormones, which is progesterone. So again, our progesterone levels are changing. Progesterone has a really lovely calming effect on us. So it helps to reduce anxiety, and it can help to stop, anxiety-induced sleep disturbances. Other neurotransmitters sort of come into the mix as well. Things like melatonin being suppressed when we're feeling anxious. So disturbed sleep is one of these catch-22s. There's symptoms we can be having which disturb our sleep, and then the disturbed sleep itself links back into the other symptoms. But it's definitely a very real one, and something that, again, that can be linked to brain health. So if we're supporting our brains, we can be supporting these symptoms as well. Low mood and depression can link in there again. So fluctuating sleep, fluctuating stress comes into this again. The changes in progesterone. I love that quote that Jacqui put up from Maisie Hill's book, Period Power. It's a brilliant book. She has another one as well called Perimenopause Power, which I think came out last year or the year before. But just about what estrogen does and what its role is. And she calls it the Beyonce hormone. It wants us to be attractive and procreate. And when we lose it, we kind of lose that as well. And we start to maybe feel a bit lower in ourselves. We're not out there. We're not doing the things that we love and putting out that vibe that we want to have babies anymore. And it can manifest itself in lower mood and depression. Increased stress itself. So again, as I said, the link between these two, the stress causing the symptoms causing the stress. if we don't find something to break the cycle and start to make changes, it can go backwards and forwards. And I love what you said at the beginning, Jacqui, about just making small changes, just starting and just focusing. I think that's really, really important. And sometimes when we've got a lot of symptoms going on, we can start to feel a bit overwhelmed with them. But it is about making one change and make it something that's easy for you to do. You know, we don't have to do this all overnight, but just make one change. We can start to see the effect, and it frees up capacity to you know, to start making more changes and more positive steps along the way. And the last one on here that I've listed, I'm sure, as Jacqui said, there are lots of other symptoms as well, but linking things directly into brain health. Low sex drive. So again, it's the role of the hypothalamus in the brain to release the hormones that signal to the ovaries to release the various sex hormones that also stimulate our sexual desire. So something called the HPG axis, hypothalamus pituitary gonadal axis. And it's sort of like the motorway between the brain and the ovaries. So as we start producing less of these hormones, the signal gets, you know, weaker. We're not getting from point A to B. We're not going down the motorway. We might get a bit lost and turn off a junction or something on the way, and we're just getting a weaker signal. But it's the brain, you know, it's the brain that's impacting that as well. So it goes every way. And I just think that the brain is such an important part of our health in general, and certainly at this time, you know, as we're going through the changes of perimenopause. So in summary, our brains and ovaries are part of this neuroendocrine system, this motorway system that's communicating backwards and forwards. Estrogen is involved in brain function, not just the reproductive system. And in fact, it's involved in so many processes throughout the body. You know, estrogen has a role. It's picked up on cells, not just in our brain and our reproductive system, but all over. But one of the things that is key for is energy production in the brain. So it pushes neurons to burn glucose to make energy. So again, slowing things down, fatiguing the brain and making it harder. And some of those symptoms manifest quite directly, like maybe the low mood or the brain fog, and others more indirectly. So things like the hot flushes or the loss of libido and so forth. So that's that part of what I wanted to talk about, and I hope it sort of helps to make a little bit more sense why we need to prioritize our brain health when we're looking at perimenopause. I want to have a look now at kind of what we can do to help support that, and what we can do to help support our brains as we go through these changes, what you can take away as that one small change or potentially more change. Hopefully something here can give you a little bit of an aha moment, be something that may be a missing piece of the puzzle that you can implement. It isn't about doing everything all in one go. It is about just finding that little thing, that root cause, that little simple change that you can do, because our brains, as well as our ovaries, are going through a transition, and they need time to adjust, and they need support to adjust as well. So I've got a slightly different 6 things, but it broadly mimics what Jacqui said as well. So the different aspects that we look at, and my thing, as she said, focuses a lot around the food, but maybe you've got the food right, in which case it's a focus on sleep or exercise that's going to be right for you. It's about finding the thing that works for you. Exercise is really important for brain health as well, and I don't want to underplay that role. When we exercise, it's firing endorphins and these feel-good hormones in our body. So when we do exercise, we do feel better. Our bodies better circulate the blood and all of the lovely nutrients that we've got from our food all around our bodies to be used. The thing is that exercise can be different in perimenopause, and particularly things like the late night high HIIT classes Jacqui was talking about aren't so great at this stage of our life, although arguably I'm not sure they're good at any stage of life at that late. But it may be we need to do exercise a bit differently, and this is where I refer back to Jacqui to kind of help navigate through that. But it is, you know, it's important for our brain health as well that we keep active, to keep our bodies feeling good and our minds feeling good as well. Stress is a huge one, and I think Jacqui covered this quite well already. It's kind of the different aspects of stress, and it's this stress bucket and everything that's feeding in. So it might well be the stress of family issues, job, etc., but equally it could be other stresses on the body, like the wrong exercise, the lack of sleep, the wrong foods, or maybe you have like an unrealized infection that's lingering around in the body, or perhaps your immune system's struggling and you keep picking up, you know, bug after bug, cold after cold, nothing too major, but it's constantly bringing this stress onto your body. So it's about unpicking all of these different things to help support it. And sleep as well. I cannot reiterate the importance of sleep. You know, we can be doing all the right things in every other area of our life, but you know, if we're up till all hours on the phone and not prioritizing our sleep, this is when our bodies do the repair work for both our bodies and our minds as well. This is when we're cleaning up the rubbish, when we're repairing, when we're renewing things. It's very regenerative and restorative. So we need to really think about the sleep. I think those tips that Jacqui shared were really great. And I particularly like to talk to my clients about the morning thing as well. I think sometimes it's harder to change things at the end of the day once we've got that circadian rhythm out of whack. But if we can actually focus on getting some sunlight in our eyes first thing in the morning, that helps to tell the body that it's daytime and starts to slowly reset that circadian rhythm from the other end of the day. So if you do find it's harder to do the evening things, then think about doing that and doing the morning sunlight. But food, so this is my thing. This is what I probably do a lot of the time, you know, the majority of the time with my clients. I'm pleased that Jacqui has listened to everything I've told her over the years, and then she's talking to you about the same things. Stabilizing blood sugar is really, really important. And as she said, at this time of life, it can be more difficult to do that. But it's never been more important to do so. Okay, so we want to avoid these changes to insulin levels. We also want to avoid the stress that it causes on the body. If we're eating the wrong things and we're shooting our blood sugar levels up, we're putting our body into a state of stress. The response from that is to secrete lots of insulin, which brings blood sugar down. But if it's happened too quickly, then we plummet our blood sugar levels. And that is also a different but an equal stress on the body. So we end up in this cycle of just stress throughout the day that we don't need. And that in turn then impacts our hormone levels and our brain and all of the rest of it. So I think probably one of the single biggest wins I have with many of my clients is really getting blood sugar levels under control. And as Jacqui said, it doesn't have to be massively complicated. It's about recognizing that and understanding it, and eating those high protein foods or bigger quantities of protein, making sure that that's going in with any sugars and carbohydrates that you're eating. The fiber as well helps to slow down the digestion of your meal. The same with the protein. These things take longer to digest, so they release their sugar energy molecules much more slowly. And good fats as well. And if I say stabilizing blood sugar levels is probably one of the biggest wins. The next one that comes in has got to be fats as well. Our brains are made up of 60% of fat, and we have lived through the low-fat generation. And I do wonder how much of that as well has had a kind of longer-term impact on our brains. Again, we might be more inclined to keep weight as we get into kind of perimenopause in this stage of our life. And I think we've been bombarded and pre-programmed for so many years to think lose weight, cut the fat, but that's old science, and it simply isn't true. It simply isn't true. And we need these good fats going into our bodies to support our hormone production and to really support our brains as well. So when I'm talking about good fats, I'm not talking about processed foods and hydrogenated fats and oils and things like that. I'm talking about omega-3 fats, which are really, really important for brain health. So that's things like your oily fish, so salmon and mackerel and the like. And it's great if you eat fish to get, 2 or 3 portions of that into your diet every week. If you're vegetarian or vegan, then you can look at other sources. So like these, I've put some walnuts on the slide here, brain-shaped walnuts, that they are higher in the fats, the good omega-3 fats that we're looking for. But if you don't eat that much fish, it's probably worthwhile to at least consider taking a supplement. So we'll come to supplements in a second. And then other types of good fats that we can include are olive oil, coconut oil, avocado, the nuts and seeds that Jacqui was talking about, again for snacks, snacking on the nuts with your fruits, sprinkling seeds on your soups and salads just to get a little bit extra of these really, really helpful fats. Also, just throwing out the low fat things. So have full fat yogurt, don't have low fat margarine, have butter. We don't have to eat loads and loads of it. It's not the mainstay of our diet, but don't shy away from these really healthy fats for other reasons or because of this kind of pre-programming that we've had through the years. Another nutrient I wanted to talk about is choline, and this again links a little bit into the whole low-fat generation and the old science. So choline is found most readily in egg yolks. And again, because they're high in fat, we've been told previously that perhaps we shouldn't be eating too many eggs, bad for cholesterol. But actually, we might be missing out on choline. So choline is really important for making something called acetylcholine, and this plays a really important role in the brain. So it's a really good reason for us to be eating eggs. We can also get choline from liver, so one of the most nutrient-dense foods you can get, but something that perhaps doesn't feature in most people's diets now for various reasons, and I know it's not the easiest thing to stomach for a lot of people. So eggs might be the easier option. We can also get choline from things like legumes, so chickpeas and lentils and the like. You get a little bit of choline in peanuts. So if you are looking at a vegan diet, maybe focus on these, or again, think about supplementing, because I think eggs is probably the easiest way to get that into the diet. And it is such an important nutrient for our brain health. I put antioxidants on here. So antioxidants really help to clean up our bodies. Really easy to get in our diet, and that's from eating plenty of vegetables and fruits, so fresh foods. You can get antioxidants as well from different supplements, but I'm not a huge fan of getting it that way. I think we can all put, as Jacqui said, half our plate full of vegetables or salad when we're eating to make sure that we're getting plenty of these fresh ingredients which are packed with antioxidants. Also anti-inflammatory foods, so talking about stress causes inflammation in the body. Anti-inflammatory foods can help to sort of bridge the gap. I think we always want to get to the root of the inflammation, and this is what I love doing with my clients, finding out what for them is causing this inflammation. But anti-inflammatory foods can be really nice as part of the process. So things like turmeric that you might put in a curry dish or sprinkle on some lovely scrambled eggs, pineapple, omega-3 fats, again, really nice and anti-inflammatory. I'm not going to dwell too much on phytoestrogens, but phytoestrogens are essentially compounds in foods that have a similar effect to estrogens in the body. They have a weaker effect, but they can be really nice for balancing out. So where you've got too much estrogen, you can eat some phytoestrogens to get in there and stop all of those estrogens sticking onto the cells, and they have like a weaker response. And when it's the other way around, when we haven't got enough estrogen, we can use those phytoestrogens to jump in there and stimulate the cells in our bodies and our brains to do their roles in the same way that estrogen would. So you get your phytoestrogens in a variety of foods. I quite like fermented soy foods, so things like tempeh, probably more than soya milk, and tofu. We also look at things like flax seeds. So some of those foods you can take a look at, maybe adding in if you want to help balance out. Thinking about the root cause, that's always going to be the bigger win in the long run, but some of these things can be really helpful to just help give you a bit more capacity and balance you out in the shorter term. And then 2 things I've put at the bottom here are processed foods, as in we don't want the processed foods. And Jacqui, I think you touched on this as well. Processed foods tend to be higher in those unhealthy fats, and they tend to be lower in nutrients. And you know, when we're going through perimenopause, we really want to be giving our bodies the maximum amount of nutrients, the best that we can possibly be giving them. So if we can cut out some of these low nutrient foods, which are essentially just sugar, I never count calories, but they are essentially empty calories. I always think about, what nutrients am I getting in? What's this adding to my diet? What's this adding to my health? I'm looking at whole foods, fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, good sources of proteins and fats, eggs. You know, all of these things are lovely, nutrient dense foods, and our processed foods just aren't. I'm a bit of an 80-20. I'm not going to beat anyone up because they want to have you know, toast for breakfast, but it's about kind of balancing that and really focusing on getting those nutrients in and keeping away from the processed foods. The processed foods also play very much into the destabilization of the blood sugars as well, because the processing helps to break down those whole foods, and they therefore release their sugars more quickly when we eat them. And digestive health as a final one, and again something that Jacqui's touched on. So there's a huge link between our brain health and our digestive health. A lot of clients that come to see me are quite surprised when we actually start working on digestive health first. So it is, there's a lot of research going into it right now, something called the estrobiome, and that's about these microbes in our gut, which they really have an impact then on the estrogens throughout our body. And then at a base level, if our digestion isn't great, if we've got upset, if we've got these kind of niggly IBS symptoms going on, well, we're actually might not be even absorbing the nutrients from our food very well. There's going to be upset, there's going to be stress and inflammation, and it isn't going to allow our bodies to kind of make the most of the foods that we are eating. It's also going to be another cause of stress on our body, which feeds back into the cycle, and it impacts as well our detoxification as well, which again, thinking about keeping the body in harmony, it's not something I can go into today, but it's a really, really important factor, and again impacts massively in the way that our bodies balance and manage our hormones. And then if I've got time, I'll just whiz through supplements. Supplements, something that I get asked about all the time, and sorry to put a dampener on it, but there, unfortunately, I want to start with saying there isn't a quick fix. There isn't just a pill. You know, you can't just drink copious amounts of wine all evening, go to bed at 3 a.m. and then take a supplement and expect all these perimenopause symptoms to go away. It's just not going to happen. But there are great supplements that we can take, and they do play a role. And I think it's important that we understand, if we're taking them, that we want to get the right quality and we want to get the right things. So we want to get things that are really actually going to help. When I'm working with clients individually, I can make more supplement recommendations because I understand what's going on in their body. I understand if they have any medical issues that might need to be taken into account, any medications that they're taking. So I have to be a little bit careful when I talk about supplements at a general level, and I don't tend to recommend anything massively on there. But that said, I think it's always helpful to take a good quality multi. Okay, when we're going through perimenopause and menopause, oftentimes it's just like taking a sticking plaster off of underlying issues, be that the digestive health, be that detoxification issues, be that a lack of nutrients in the brain. Our bodies manage so well, and then suddenly they're given an extra load to deal with. And these things that may have been bubbling under the surface without us really knowing, or without causing us too many problems, kind of come up. So taking a good quality multivitamin, preferably one that contains choline, can be a nice place to start, just to give our bodies that little bit of extra while we work on the other aspects that might be underlying it. Vitamin D, really, really important for so many aspects of our health, but brain health included. And it's recommended everyone take vitamin D, particularly over the winter months. So if you're not taking one now, think about that, or check your Maltese got a good level of vitamin D in it. We also need a vitamin called vitamin K2. So a vitamin D helps bring calcium into the body. Vitamin K2 helps then get that into the bones, and it's really important for this kind of balanced cycle. So get a vitamin D which has got K2 in it, ideally. Omega-3 I talked about. If you're one of those people that's not eating oily fish, Jacqui, I'm going to look at you, then I think it's a really important one to have that kind of balance of omegas within the body. So a good quality omega-3 is important. And this is one where I really recommend that we go for quality. Good quality omega-3s are not cheap, but they're not cheap for a reason. They are expensive because they are fish oils, usually, that have been filtered to take out toxic metal contaminants and plastics as well from the sea. So I would always say go for a really good quality omega-3 supplement. And I'm happy to talk to anyone about that if they want to know in a bit more detail. It also should be in kind of an opaque, a green glass bottle, or something that sunlight can't get through, because that impacts the quality of the oil. And it should be kept in the fridge as well, to make sure that the money you've spent on that expensive fish oil isn't withered away by degrading oil in your warm kitchen or sunny windowsill. I talked a little bit about antioxidants. The easiest way to boost our antioxidants with supplements is vitamin C. Vitamin C is cheap and cheerful. I'm not really worried what form of vitamin C you get. You do not need to get an expensive vitamin C. That's just going to make you really expensive. Vitamin C to vitamin W. It's something that moves our body quite quickly. So we want to take regular doses of vitamin C throughout the day. The easiest way to do that is through having plenty of vegetables and fruits with every meal. But if you want to put a bit of extra in, I think, vitamin C is the safest and easiest way to do that. I'm not into big, expensive, high-tech antioxidant coffee, green tea extracted supplements. Your bog standard cheap and cheerful vitamin C is going to do the job just as well in most cases. And then there are lots of herbs and adaptogenic herbs out there on the market. I can come back to you and talk to you about some of these if you want. It's somewhere, like I said, where I have to go a little bit careful, because these herbs particularly can interact with medications if you're taking them, and sometimes they can be quite potent. One that's been well studied and seems to be quite effective for hot flashes in particular with many people is sage, and that's quite a safe one. Again, I'm not recommended you go out and take it in huge doses without knowing what your personal situation is for that, but maybe one to look at. And then in terms of adaptogens, so these are herbs and other supplements that help with our resilience. And my favorite one really is maca. So maca is a South American root, and it's made into like a powder, dried and made into a powder. You can take it in supplement form, so in capsules, or you can take it, you can just add it into foods, add it into smoothies, bake it into things. And maca's all been studied and it's taken traditionally for resilience, and I think it's a great one as we manage the fluctuating hormones and the changes of perimenopause. Anything that can boost our resilience while we get around to and focus on supporting the underlying causes can be really, really helpful. But do take it easy. The effects aren't instant. It doesn't help everybody. There is a chance that you might not feel good on it at all, in which case don't take it. But if I was going to look at any of the adaptogens, I'd probably start there to start with. But there's loads of things out there. It's already been mentioned in the chat here, red clover, black cohosh. There's all of these things out there, but I'd really recommend that you take some time to understand what your root causes are first, rather than just spending your money on all of these things. And it is difficult to see, as Jacqui mentioned in some of the chat groups. These things can be amazing for people, but you have to know what you're addressing as a root source, and it will be different for each individual. So it's not actually safe to just go off and take high doses of these things, and it's not really very good value for money if you don't actually know why it is you are taking them. So that's what I prepared, and hopefully I haven't run over too much in the time frame, but I'd be happy to come and talk to you again about any of this if you're interested in learning a bit more. And I think, shall I hand back to you, Nicola? I think there's some questions in the chat box, but I wasn't technological enough to manage that. And
no, it's okay. Thank you so much. That really was helpful. I've made loads and loads of notes. Has anybody else got any questions?
Yes, me again. Thank you.
Oh, you did. Go on then.
Thank you, Catherine. So first of all, can I just ask you to repeat what you said about the quality of the vitamin D? You said something vitamin D, and then you said something else that it needs to have in it.
Yeah. So I always recommend you get a vitamin D with K2 in it.
K2,
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be expensive. Better You make the spray one. They have one with K2 in it. Nutri Advanced is a nice quality brand that I recommend. They do quite a nice menopause range, actually, combining some of these nutrients in. I didn't mention magnesium. Magnesium should have been on my slide, really. But they do a lovely magnesium with a little bit of extra in it. But they do a very good vitamin D with K2 in it. But yeah, one to keep a lookout for.
So I was told that magnesium oil that you can put topically is not as good as magnesium that you swallow.
No, it's about how you absorb it. So there's some people that say you don't absorb it through the skin at all. I think that more anecdotally, it does seem to have an impact. I think if you've got a lot of digestive issues and you're not absorbing your magnesium very well through your guts, then maybe it can be helpful to kind of bridge a gap a little bit. But no, on the whole, you want to have a magnesium supplement that you take. And again, the form does matter with magnesium. So you want magnesium citrate or magnesium glycinate, ideally. The cheaper magnesium supplements are just magnesium oxide, and you're not going to really absorb very much of that.
Okay. And so sage is one of the things I tried with that isoflavin thing. Isoflavin, soy isoflavin, is that what it is? So
yeah.
But I was told that soy is not good for you because the soy products nowadays are made from genetically modified soya beans, not the pure ones. So I kind of, I've just got the bottle there because I kind of, oh no, I'm not going to put genetically modified or potentially genetically modified stuff in me.
Yeah, I mean, it's a mixture, and not all soy is. So, some of these supplement companies, the better ones, are using soy bases in some of these projects as well, and it's done nicely. I think the thing with soy is it depends on the individual, and a lot of the research done on soy was done in Asian populations, East Asian populations, where they eat a lot of soy, and it seems to have a benefit. And then when they try to replicate these studies with a more kind of Western population, it didn't have the same effect. So there's something genetically going on there as well. And I think I'm not advocating the blood type diet at all. Let's be very clear on that.
Why?
But at the same time, I think there is something to said in terms of how we ate ancestrally and these genetic lines that have been passed down. I think the blood type diet is a little bit too simplified mainly in it. I think it does work, but I think a lot of the positive impacts that it has for people can be the same as any other diet, is that they're switching from loads of processed foods to actually only eating whole, nutrient dense foods, because they're following this regime. But it's not so much the regime as the fact that they've cut out the processed foods and replaced them with, you know, really nutrient dense foods.
Yeah, that I understand that, but that I wasn't coming from. I did the whole cutting out of the rubbish years ago. And so, but I'm still on this journey of trying to manage the menopause. So, you know, yeah, I agree completely. And a lot of them, you know, if you're starting from a place of eating Kentucky or McDonald's, then it doesn't matter which one of them you do, you're going to feel better. But that all came out of my diet, you know, 10 years ago. So I am coming from a position of, I'd like to think a fairly clean body, but it's still going through all of this menopause rubbish. So I'm like, you know.
You sound like an ideal client for me. I think, you know, oftentimes women are struggling with perimenopause because they don't have this information. This kind of, when I said at the beginning that I'm a nutritionist in this capacity, and it's kind of more general dietary advice, but we are all unique and we are all different. And, you know, there could be any number of things that are impacting you personally, from your genes to your toxin exposure to, you know, there's so many different levels that, and you know, if you want to dig deeper into that, that's kind of more the nutritional therapy side of it, and looking at the very personalized information. So I'm more than happy. Nicola's got my details. I think I can send it so she can send out. I offer a free 20-minute call to everyone to talk about, you know, what their health goals are and how I might be able to help them. So more than, you know, happy to offer you 20 minutes if you want to go through that and see if you think there's something that you haven't thought about investigating just yet, a fresh perspective on it that might be impacting you there. Because I really feel for you, and it is really hard when you feel like, no, I've read this, I've researched, I've done X, Y, Z, I've tried everything, I'm doing everything right, and it's still not working. And unfortunately, it's not fair. It just is the way it is with some of us.
Okay. Ladies, I'm mindful of the time. We have kind of got over a bit. Just one question I would like to ask of both of you really is, as we come through the menopause, do we return to normal? Do we get our brains back, or are we just got to accept that they're a bit lazier at the other end? Or
it's all about, I think it's all about supporting these things ongoing. The perimenopause years are really there to, you imagine if we just switched the estrogen off in one day. I mean, that would be even bigger crash. So hard as it is, we're managing that process. But yes, our bodies should get more used to it. And they adjust and they adapt. And we find these strategies as well along the way to adapt. So there's no reason that you should, you know, if you're feeling particularly rubbish in perimenopause now, there's no reason to think that is going to be the next, you know, 30 years of your life at all. No.
Thank you for that, Jacqui. Thank you. Right, ladies, Jacqui throughout this has been putting a load of amazing information into the chat box. If you're not used to Zoom, if you go down to the bottom of the chat box, you'll see like a little file. If you click on that, you can download the chat with that information. And then with regards to our speakers today, we'll make sure that we will send you out both of their details, so that if you would like one-to-ones or, you know, a bit more support, you'll be able to do so. But if we haven't got any more questions, I think it's nearly 1:15, we're 15 minutes over. But honestly, ladies, that's so helpful. Thank you so much for giving up your time today. And it's been wonderful. So without further ado, then we'll go off for lunch. We'll go and have a little lie down now, won't we? Or we'll get out in nature. That'd be nice.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, and thank you to everybody that's come today. And I hope that's been helpful for you. But yes, thank you very much. So we'll end. So we'll say goodbye. Lovely to meet you all, and hopefully we'll see you soon. If any of the ladies that have come along today have never kind of been in touch with Woo before, we'll send you some details. For just £5 a month, you get to come to all of our events like this free of charge. And like I say, your money then goes to help in great causes for women. So there we go. All right. Thank you, ladies. Enjoy the rest of the afternoon. Take care.
Take care.
See you all.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.